You're listening to iCannabisRadio.com.
Hello and welcome to iCannabis Radio, the Hemp Connoisseur channel. This is Samantha Walsh, David Madalena, and our guest today, Sean Coleman. I'm going to start things off because David has lost his voice. He won't be speaking at all, actually. He's just going to sit there and look pretty. Yeah, I do wish, actually. It would be nice. But our guest today, the illustrious Sean Coleman.
Howdy.
Yes, one of my favorite people in the
You need to make new friends.
entire state. I do need to make new friends, actually. If you're the kind of company I keep, that's
right.
not an inaccurate statement at all. And then we are going to be speaking today about politics, right, Sean?
We sure are.
How was your week? Good week?
My week was pretty good. We had the first retail marijuana store open in Boulder last week. Terrapin
I
Care
was
Station.
there.
And
Yeah.
you were there for that?
Yes, Terrapin Care. Go Chris Woods.
Yeah, 1795 Folsom Street.
Is that the only retail marijuana in Boulder City right now?
It's the only retail in Boulder City. There's another store in Boulder County, and it's kind of interesting that, a community that voted for Amendment 64, 3-1 margin, their city council seems to be a little bit slow in getting folks open up there. So
Is it because no one regulates quite like Boulder?
That's exactly how I would put it. That's exactly what I would say.
So we want to say we apologize for not being on the air last week. David broke the entire radio station.
We were trying to set up a makeshift grow here, and we blew out the breaker.
It was better than self-exploding from a critical fluid hash extraction or something like that. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. What are you doing that's so important right
We
now?
were just posting on Facebook. I was posting the question of the day for people.
We have a question of the day now?
Well, the question of the day is because I want to talk about what we wanted to talk about last week but we didn't have power.
Oh, yeah, you were angry.
I was angry because
I called you that morning.
All right, so Governor Hikenpooper last week pulled out his proposal for what he wanted to do with the income from the marijuana taxes.
The tax revenue.
The tax revenue. And
Your money, people. That's your money.
This is your money at work. And basically he was saying, they slated $100 million. And
Wait, time out. It's really important. So do I get to get tagged in this Facebook post because I want to be
tagged in the Facebook
Yeah,
post?
tag me in it.
Oh, yeah, tag him in it, yes.
Yeah, I want people to know
Where is it?
So,
I'm all famous on the radio. Hi,
right.
Mom.
So here's the deal. The Governor Hikenpooper, and I'm just going to give the quick bullet points of how it's being broken down, is saying $100 million or $99 million in total funds, basically for the years 2014 and 2015. So they expect more of this money to come in on 2015. But this budget proposal has $45.5 million broken down for youth marijuana use prevention, $40.4 million for substance abuse treatment.
Marijuana specific, not
Marijuana-specific.
not heroin.
Yeah,
No,
not heroin,
marijuana-specific.
which is on the
Yeah.
rise.
Not alcohol.
So
not
right
alcohol,
there,
which-
so right there, we're at $85.9 million for substance abuse treatment and youth marijuana use prevention. Then there's $12.4 million for public health. $1.8 million for regulatory oversight. So only $1.8 million for the regulatory oversight. And then $3.2 million for law enforcement and public safety, and $0.2 million for statewide coordination. Now, obviously, there's more specifics on this bill as to what each one of those, more itemized breakdown of this, but this was their bullet point list that they sent over, basically breaking it down. So does anybody think that we need, let's just say, we'll just even say the $85.9 million. Do we need $85.9 million to prevent for substance abuse and for substance abuse treatment of marijuana, and then for youth marijuana use prevention? I mean, where is this money going is the question.
I mean, I don't know about you. To me, and then what do I know? I'm just a simple country girl. I like to steal a famous line from Representative Bob Gardner, although he doesn't really say girl.
He's a country lawyer.
He's a country lawyer. I'm just a simple country lawyer. But it just seems to me that the best way to maybe prevent kids from engaging in risky behavior, whether that's premature drug use, premature sexual behavior, politics, all the things you try to keep your kids out of before they're ready to lose their innocence, would be to engage their minds and their physical bodies with other activities, like arts programs, after school athletics, things that we've had to drastically cut because of a recession and because of a budget that's, hamstrung by Tabor, so we can't exactly, fund these kinds of things for our children.
Oh, Samantha, I'm glad you brought that up because
I just don't know. I just think that to me that just seems like the right answer, right?
Well,
I think it does. Yeah.
I was speaking with some of the folks over at Denver Relief here recently. One of the people at Denver Relief is on the board of the Colorado Youth Symphony. And the Colorado Youth Symphony has a great outreach program where they're reaching out to at-risk kids to start educating them on the arts. And the reason why that matters so much to me, because that's my own background. I got into classical music because of an outreach program at Juilliard. That is when see those commercials like the anti-drug. Yeah, that is, because you know what?
Yeah.
If you're busy practicing clarinet, you don't have time to be out in the street smoking pot and drinking beer. So if the whole object is prevention, let's do something that's actually going to work instead of falling into the hands of people who basically make their money off of first-time marijuana possession convictions and no longer have that source of revenue.
Right.
Like, those people need to find a new job. The Colorado Youth Symphony needs the money. The Colorado Symphony. If we just want to waste money, right? Because that's what the governor seems to want to do.
It seems like that's my thing. It's an egregious waste of money. But the question I want to ask is, well, who's actually getting this funding?
Well, again, I understand what it's like to, have to, do something else for your living. Like, as we were talking about, when I started my professional career, I was in the arts. I was a clarinetist. But, it turns out there are people who play the clarinet better than I do. So I had to do something else in my time. And, the folks who used to make the living.
Wait, you're not a good clarinet player?
I'm one of the best in the world, but there are people who are a lot better. And that's why I'm a lobbyist instead. Because
you get to play a different kind of flute, right?
So, the point I was going to make is that and I forgot it.
That's because you smoke too much marijuana.
That's impossible. That's impossible.
That's impossible. No, I think the point you were trying to make is that when you suck at your job and you have no purpose anymore, you should find something better to do with your time.
For example, if your job is to wait around for people to get that first time marijuana possession conviction so that they can come to your class and you can tell them how bad of a person they are. If that's what you do for a living, you can do something else for a living.
Yeah,
that's all there is to it. If we're going to talk about how to best use Colorado's marijuana revenues to prevent kids from using marijuana, which I don't even agree as a premise is the best use of its funds. Because let's talk about that $1 million on enforcement they want to spend. Okay, well, you're talking about people who are small business owners who are paying $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year in just licensing fees. Now, I don't know how much everybody in audience and listening knows about this, but we do have rules in this state about how much regulatory agencies can charge for licenses based on how much revenue they have.
Like the recent audit that came out.
Like, for example,
$20 million in excess at the moment.
It's only 22.5.
$22.5 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the MED, they have excess
funds.
Oh,
no. That's across many departments of the state where they have more money than they ought to have.
It was like 7 or 8 state agencies, but the one who took up half that budget was
the Medical Marijuana Fund. Yep.
Yeah, CDPHE's budget.
$12.5 million of your taxpayer dollars. Now, again, I'm a Democrat saying this. $12.5 million of your taxpayer dollars that are just chilling in a vault somewhere, so that the governor can tell you how bad a person you are for making a safer choice in alcohol.
Well, and I think that's the big issue is, we're talking about a safer choice in alcohol. The governor comes from the alcohol industry.
I know. Isn't that fascinating, David, that the governor has strayed so far from his base on 2 issues, fracking and oil and gas and cannabis.
2 issues we focus on,
which
obviously,
happen
on a
to be
regular basis.
also
Actually,
industries fracking and cannabis, which also happen to be 2 issues that their opposition, from which he's gained most of his wealth and fortune.
Well, and here's the thing that I find interesting, a little anecdotal story here is so my stepfather lives down in, not my stepfather, my girlfriend's stepfather. I'm
Whoa.
sorry, my stepfather-in-law, I guess would be the right way to put it. We had a conversation about fracking just this past weekend, and he had no idea that fracking was bad for the environment. I mean, none. Like he was like aghast when I started telling him everything that fracking can do, and part of that was like, well, I now know you don't read the magazine, but at the same point, he's like, well, I hear that fracking is safe, and I'm like, well, where did you hear that from? Well, the governor, and then there are all these commercials on about how safe fracking is. I'm like, okay, so paid for commercials you're believing, okay. And it's like, it's one of those things. It's like,
right.
Man, I got to just describe everything. And he's like, well, I don't even know what fracking is and how the process is. And I had to explain the whole process. And once I explained the whole process to him, he's like, how are they even making the argument that this is safe?
Well, look, here's the thing. What the governor consistently says about the marijuana experiment, as he calls it, his words, not mine,
right.
Is that we don't have all the data. All the facts aren't there yet.
Right.
Okay, so if you're going to apply that same logic that we don't have all the data, we don't have all the facts, therefore we need to go slowly. Well, we also don't have all the facts and all the data about hydraulic fracturing.
Sure.
I don't know whether or not it causes all these earthquakes that they're having in Oklahoma, because I just saw that on Rachel Maddow, so maybe she's lying too. What I can definitely say based on that is that some people think it's true. Some people think it's not true. That makes the data inconclusive, just like with cannabis. So
right.
How is it that it's possible to go full speed ahead when we're talking about an activity that I'm not saying does, may poison water, may in an arid climate like we're in Colorado, may cause earthquakes this close to Yosemite, which is an underground volcano.
A super volcano. It's
right,
a super
okay.
volcano.
So I'm just saying, if the idea is we don't know if marijuana cures cancer or stops epilepsy or not.
Or makes
It's inconclusive.
or makes you lose 8 IQ
But,
points.
well,
according
it's
to
inconclusive.
When
But
you
if-
say it's inconclusive, you're saying it's inconclusive based on scientific evidence out there, like empirical scientific evidence, because there hasn't been enough studies specifically going towards
Which is, I would
Oh,
those
say
things.
the same thing about the things that people say negatively about hydraulic fracturing.
Right.
That it's inconclusive. So I'm just using the government's own logic to try to understand how, on the one hand, he is able to say we should move full steam ahead with this industry, and then on the other hand, when you're talking about the exact same scenario with cannabis, for that we need to go as slow as we possibly can. I'm just trying to find the consistency here as a Democrat, as why someone who's running for office under my party's banner should get my vote again. I'm just trying to. Really, I'm asking you for help because I don't really understand.
Well, to me, it's a and here's the thing when it comes to like issues like fracking and cannabis is there's also a common sense approach that I think gets missed by politicians, Hikenpooper especially being one. Well, there's not enough evidence on marijuana yet. It's like, well, you know what? The preliminary evidence is still the same. There's no deaths attributed to marijuana.
Right.
There's no overdoses. Oh, and you know what? There's plenty of evidence on alcohol.
Right.
And yet you're not taking any of this funding really and going towards alcohol. I saw one verbiage where alcohol was mentioned, and it was like one of the smaller budget items, and it was marijuana and alcohol and substance abuse.
You're probably referring to the $9.5 million for alcohol, marijuana and alcohol when it comes to driving and substance abuse. Yeah, so it was like $9.5 million for.
And that
like,
pays
mostly,
it's paying for a campaign, basically. It's paying for billboards and stuff like that.
And but again, mostly marijuana, a little
Mostly
bit of
marijuana.
alcohol. So of that $9.5 million,
Right.
Who knows what
But
the actual break is, but-
again, when it comes to like DUIs and DUIDs, that is another area of science that the science isn't there. Marijuana affects cognitive abilities.
That's
It
right.
doesn't affect your motor function.
True.
Alcohol affects your motor and cognitive abilities. There's no reliable test for immediate impairment when it comes to
there isn't.
marijuana.
Right.
And that's another area of study that needs to be researched and
Yeah,
developed.
let's spend. If you're going to spend that kind of money, let's figure out how do we really determine about cognitive impairment.
Sure. Well, we have to go on a break, so let's pick up right when we come back from the break. I do want to talk more about that, and then a little bit more on the common sense side of fracking too, when it came to what Rachel Maddow said about causing earthquakes, because I think there's a lot of common sense behind that besides the science. So
Right.
we'll be right back.
Call Connoisseur at 1-800-420-5757 for all your insurance needs. Connoisseur understands the risks you face each day, and we are there to protect your business and your investment. Since 2010, Connoisseur has been serving the cannabis industry nationwide. Call Connoisseur at 1-800-420-5757 or visit us on the web at connoisseur.com to learn more about our insurance and risk management services. Proud member of the NCIA.
Independent Records and Videos has been your locally owned and operated choice for music, movies, and lifestyle accessories since 1978. Independent Records and Videos has 7 locations from Denver to Colorado Springs to Pueblo to serve your entertainment needs. Whether it's vinyl, CDs, DVDs, books, smoking accessories, or hundreds of other fun and fanciful items, Independent is ready and waiting to make your dreams come true. We are always buying, selling, and trading vinyl, CDs, books, and DVDs, so sell yours and buy ours. Independent Records and Videos, your entertainment headquarters. Check us out at beindependent.com or on Facebook.
High up in the Rockies is beautiful Frisco, Colorado. Medical Marijuana of the Rockies is a medical marijuana center with compassion for Colorado's medical patients. Looking for great meds grown organically in soil? You've come to the right place. Medical Marijuana of the Rockies is just off I-70 at exit 203. Check them out at the web at www.mmrockies.com. Their ever-changing strain and clone selection is updated on the website daily. When making a trip to the mountains, no matter the season, stop by Medical Marijuana of the Rockies. Make sure you say you heard about them on iCannabis Radio. You can call 970-668-MEDS to get more information. Medical Marijuana of the Rockies, your mountain source for meds.
I'm Gary Johnson, and you're listening to iCannabis Radio, and I want to say, talk it up, Colorado.
All right, we're back.
Sean gets very excited over the Gary Johnson.
Over the Gary
conversation.
Johnson one?
Yeah. That's his boy.
It is.
So we were talking about Governor Hickenpooper's budget proposal for the $100 million of marijuana tax revenue. And we were also talking about common sense approaches, and fracking came in there. And I do want to talk about that really quick. Yes, science may not yet be able to prove that fracking causes earthquakes. But let me ask you something. We have what are called platelets or earth platelets that rub against each other, and in that movement is what causes an earthquake. Now we have gas and other substances down in the earth. Hey, oil being one of them as well, which oil is a lubricant. I don't know if anybody's ever thought about the fact that we're taking the lubricant out of our earth and wondering, hey, maybe that's actually helping.
Well, the governor is a geologist, so I'm sure he knows all about these things.
You're funny.
So, well, I mean, because that's the point, right? So the point is that his whole argument why his approach to oil and gas is better than everybody else's is because since he's a geologist, he knows something about it.
Right.
So how is it possible that he, the expert, quote unquote, can say, well, since I'm expert in this, I can make this decision. But the thing that I have no idea what I'm talking about, which is cannabis, because if you listen to him talk about it, he clearly is not expert in the subject, nor is anybody expecting him to be expert in it.
Yeah.
But when you have the opportunity to have the people who are the experts tell you what the good policy is, if you consistently do the opposite of what they say, well then, by that same logic, based on what he knows, we should have a ban on fracking in the state because his policy in terms of marijuana policy is everything the experts say, I'm going to do the opposite.
Yeah. You're right. Well, and it depends when it comes to fracking. It's what experts are you talking to? You're talking to the experts who are being paid by the oil and gas industry,
right?
But I think that's my thing on the common sense is like I know you're replacing it with other chemicals when you take that gas out to push it out, but those chemicals aren't what naturally occurs down in the ground. So yeah, maybe it is causing earthquakes because you're shifting these things when you have air or whatever it is that's keeping things in place way down below the earth, in the Earth's ground. You take that away, then there's displacement. Something has to move.
Also, I mean, like, again, this is something that seismic activity on the planet probably didn't contemplate when it decided when the universe decided what the physics of seismic activity were going to be on this particular planet. I'm pretty sure it didn't contemplate. Oh, but some millions of years later, probably these other organisms are going to start digging holes and extracting it. And
exactly.
Like, in the meanwhile, like, so the idea that something with so many unknowns should have less regulators available to it in the state, right?
Yep.
Does it really?
Yeah, by a lot.
No, not a lot of regulation on fracking.
I mean, in terms of like actual people whose job it is to go walk around.
There's not an entire fracking enforcement division or like Fed that comes in and
they don't have to pay $30,000 in licensing fees a year to be able to drill.
That I
do
don't
fracking.
know.
Yeah,
that I don't.
They might have to pay something.
That I don't know. But what I do know in terms of boots in the ground, boots in the ground, they didn't ask for 55 new employees. for that division in the budget. They sure did ask for 55 new employees to regulate marijuana.
Sure.
But 55 new employees for hydraulic fracturing, we don't need 55 more. Okay. Maybe that's true. But if that is true, how is it possible that in the very following fiscal year, your request for enforcement is only $1 million?
Yeah.
How did you go from needing 55 new people to needing only $1 million to do the same thing?
Right.
Also, how come some of that money isn't going to lowering licensing fees if you're supposedly pro-business?
Well, licensing fees is one thing. They did lower the patient card fee, from 35 to 15 because of the excess of money on that side.
Yeah, because they have too much money by $12.5 million.
Yeah.
Dollars. Not, they lowered it from $35 to $15. They weren't off by $20.
Right.
They're off by $12.5 million.
I will say this much though, even though you're off by that much, we are still in such a new industry that it's really hard to keep. It's very hard to keep track of knowing and predicting. Okay, this is consistently how much money we're going to bring in from this. So I give them a little bit of leeway on those kind of issues where it's like, well, yeah, we have $12 million in excess. But at the same point, I give them a little bit and say, well, okay. This is still a brand new industry that has never existed before. You're still feeling it out. We don't know how fast it's growing and all that.
The equivalency you're trying to make is that if the argument in both camps is that the science is inconclusive, then the approach should be the same.
Yes, I agree.
I agree. I mean, and that's again, I'm not a geologist.
Right.
I don't know anything about it.
Joe, our lobbying partner, Joe is who lobbies for oil and gas. Is asked us to back off this industry a little bit. We're sorry, Joe. We're just asking questions.
Just asking questions.
We're just asking questions, Joe. We just feel
we're loud.
It's a discussion that needs to be had. That's all. We still love you.
You can come on in a couple of weeks, Joe. We have an opening in 2 weeks,
he's saying
and we can talk about it.
He's saying Colorado's Oil and Gas Commission has an army of regulators watching fracking. So at least they also have an army of regulators, but do they?
Just watching fracking, or are they?
Yeah, just watching fracking.
Is it kind of like watching grass grow and just it's happening?
Hey,
it's
Joe,
happening.
Hey, Joe, do they test? Do they test the fracking fluid before it goes into the ground and then after it goes into the ground?
Yeah.
Wait.
Do they tax them before it goes in and then after it comes back out?
Yes, they do actually.
Yeah,
that
they do. Okay.
Well, they pay a lot of taxes, but again, it's not to say
they do. They actually they have a huge severance tax budget, and they actually have a thing where they were trying to pull the marijuana argument, which is like, hey, if your municipality is going to opt out of fracking, maybe you shouldn't get the severance tax that the oil and gas pays for. So I don't know. There's arguments on both sides of this that are really interesting.
Who's getting the severance pay, by the way?
That's all you get, Joe.
Who is getting the severance pay?
I don't know, Joe. Can you answer that via text message?
Well, so a severance tax is the theory of a severance tax is that the minerals in the land belong to the people.
Right.
And if you're going to extract something from it, then the people should get compensated for what you took.
So the people in the areas,
so it goes.
Because I haven't seen any of it. I mean, but I'm not in a place where there's fracking. So.
It generates revenue for the state. Look, there's no denying,
just like oil does for Alaska.
Well, look, there's no denying that both industries are industries that produce a lot of employment in the state, produce a lot of economic activity in the state, and those are all good things. And I would say, likewise, it's important to understand what the cost of that economic activity actually is. What we do need to say, though, is what we do need to say, though, is that we need to have a consistent, logical approach so that the voters could understand what kind of leaders they have. And what they're seeing and Governor Hikenpooper is a little bit of a schizophrenic approach to what's arguably the same argument, which is that we are not sure what this actually does, so we should be careful. No one is saying that we shouldn't be careful about the approach to marijuana. And no one is saying that we shouldn't be careful about the approach to oil and gas, except for the governor.
Well, and my thing on the marijuana approach is I'm not saying that it's a good idea to do substance abuse prevention for children. I'm not saying that, but the idea of how much money.
Well, $45 million just for that. I don't know. I think Representative, which one was it? Was it Giroux or which one was it? She made a question in the Denver Post about like what kind of a program costs that much. And I don't know. I guess again, I want to go back to my thing where it's like, DARE was a giant failure. Drugs are really exciting. Yes,
Yeah.
that's what we all learned from DARE. It doesn't do anything. And really, in the advent of like social media, where children are just inundated anyways, and like the youth has access to information, so they're going to be able to Google your facts, and they're going to find out that you're wrong. So you can't tell them it's a gateway drug. You can't tell them that it's going to make you stupid or that it's going to ruin your IQ, because they're going to find out that one study that they love to tout out has been retracted or criticized in that same peer-reviewed journal, and they said no, actually this is a terrible study and the science was faulty on it.
Right.
But you're going to find all this the benefits of cannabis. So isn't again the best way to get kids from engaging in drug behavior at all before they're ready, before they're adults and they can make that choice for themselves, is to preoccupy their time with things that are good for them, like music, athletics, after-school programs.
Imagine if we could say marijuana is actually expanding that youth programs on music. And again, $40 million was written into the Constitution to go towards construction of public schools. I off the top of my head, I can't remember the exact name of the program.
Best.
Thank you. So $40 million to construct and to help update our schools. $45.5 million is being spent on youth marijuana use prevention. So think about that for a second. $40 million for construction of schools. That takes more labor power. That actually creates jobs, a lot of jobs. And it actually helps increase our educational system here. But you're spending more money on preventing kids from using marijuana. Why don't you take, say, $5.5 million on youth marijuana use prevention, and then take the other $40 million and double the fund for BEST?
Well, BEST is constitutionally there's a funding factors when it comes to BEST. They actually have a cap on how much they can. It's ridiculous. But you're right. The funding can be more aptly applied to a public education or a broader standard where
or something to help out our state. Again, going to the marijuana to the alcohol side of things. This state, Colorado in and of itself has some transportation issues.
Like I-30. You mean Highway 36 and how that's been sold out to Goldman
for
Sachs
50-year. I love who gets a 50-year contract. I would be like, hey, why don't we give you a 10-year? Let's see how this rolls out.
I want a 50-year contract.
I want a 50-year contract. But no, let's talk about this. So imagine taking this money and saying, okay, we're going to put this towards improvements on our roads or helping public transportation.
I think that we should take this as an important opportunity to refocus this conversation. Because for one, the governor's budget request is simply that. He can ask for the money all he wants.
Right.
Does not mean the legislature has to give it to him.
Sure.
So I think that folks who are concerned about this, what they need to do right now, today, if you're listening to this on a computer, you're at your computer anyway, look up your member of the General Assembly, your House member, your Senate member, and you tell them how you'd like to see this money spent. Mm-hmm. And including nothing. That's
you can say no, give the money back.
Because let's not forget, not spending it's always one of the options. Right?
Not spending is always one of the options.
If we can increase the state's reserve fund, then we can increase our bonding authority. That way, in the event of another fire, another flood, the state has more cash on hand to deal with the disaster, or more lending capacity, so they can borrow money if we need to do that. So there's so many other things that can be done. And if the legislature hears from their constituents, I think that they will start questioning the logic of the governor's budget request, because, again, it's only a request.
It's only a request. But I guess the big thing for me is the fact that he put a request forward like that. Part of me goes, okay, some of this is politics. Some of this is him going to the rest of the country to the federal government saying, look, we're being very serious about, being responsible with the legalization of marijuana. Yes, I get that. I think that there needs to be some lip service done to that, but it doesn't need to be $45.5 million.
But also, how did you come up with a $100 million figure several days before the first reporting of the marijuana taxes on February 20th?
Well, I'm assuming they got a preliminary report. They had
the first day that anybody who was going to be paying this excise tax, which is a constitutional fund that did not exist before January 1st, because it was only available. The only source of revenue is from retail sales. Yep. Now, on the other side, on the marijuana cash fund side, some of that money is medical marijuana revenues, which, in case you were interested, year to year, medical marijuana revenues are already up $1 million this quarter. So they might have some idea that is but they have no way to know until February 20th what that first excise tax payments were going to be. Yet somehow they have a budget proposal coming out on the 18th. I mean, what do they? What do they know that they're not telling?
Did you just have a loss of words?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out
I'm
what
just
exactly.
saying, John, 'cause that's a first.
What do they know that the legislature didn't know, so they can make these estimates several days before anyone even paid the tax in the first place? I think that's an important question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I don't have an answer for that.
Nobody does.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people in the legislature are also asking that question. It's like, wait a second. This
So
money comes into the marijuana cash fund, which the legislature has authority over. It says it right there in the statutes.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, the governor knows a lot more about how much money is going to be in that fund and wants to spend
Are you
it already.
suggesting he was peeking? He was cheating?
I have no idea.
You have no idea?
Like I said, my guess is he gets that in front of his desk before it
No.
makes
What
public.
I'm telling you is that the first day anyone would have paid that tax
Right.
is February 20th.
Right.
His budget request came out on February 18th. How to get an estimate of taxes no one had
Well,
paid
that's
yet.
what economic forecasters
Well,
do.
yeah. I mean, they probably looked at how much sales, they looked at that kind of stuff, and it came out.
Sure, but the Blue Book said $70 million. He came up with where did the extra $30 million come from?
That's a good question, though.
Between November when it passed and some 2 days before anybody paid the tax first. Look, I'm not an economic forecaster. I don't know that game. All I'm suggesting is that I think that the legislature is right to be concerned that they didn't have that data so they can start thinking for themselves, because they are the ones who are in charge of writing the state's budget, not the governor.
Right.
He can make his request all he likes, but that's the legislature's money.
So do you think it was just a strategy on the governor's part to kind of like to let them feel
Draw
like
a
they're
line
getting
in the
some
sand?
guidance? Yeah, for them to get some guidance, because before they get to see anything, they're all like, I don't know what we're going to do with this. And he's like, well, I have the answer.
I think that Colorado Democrats in the legislature have already sacrificed enough. And if it was the case, the governor was simply drawing a line in the sand, I think they should come back and say, hey, look, governor, we lost 3 members supporting you.
Right.
So you don't get to do this.
Well,
Yeah.
what? Oh, should we take a break?
Well,
and
we
then
have to.
come back?
Yeah, so I'm going to draw a line in the sand right now before we go to break, and then we'll pass that line and when we come right back.
Ideal 420 soil is preloaded to perfection with all your nutrient, microbial, and biostimulant needs. It's compatible with all strains and is good for a 22-week grow cycle from seed to harvest. This product is 100% organic and gives your marijuana that awesome aroma and smooth taste we all desire. Ideal 420 Technologies is well grounded in soil chemistry, soil physics, and microbial biology, making them the most advanced soil company in the marijuana industry. They do the science so growers can focus on what truly matters, the plants themselves. No more mixing and feeding of expensive nutrient lines, supplements, and foliar sprays. Not to mention, the company is prideful in being the most consistent soil product that has yet to hit the market. Due to the results when using Ideal 420 soil, they are quickly changing the standard for cannabis cultivation. To order the product, go to ideal420soil.com. Use promo code INTHELAB for an additional 20% off. Extraction Tech Solutions. Not only is it safe, but it offers one of the only ETL certified essential oil extraction systems on the market. Our equipment meets or exceeds all of the North American safety standards. Customer relationships are important to us, so after the sale, it doesn't stop for us. We are reliable and therefore when our customer needs us. We offer pre- and post-sales training, method development, services, and repairs. Extraction Tech, safe and reliable because it matters. Contact us at www.extractiontech.com. or 720-515-9254.
National Cannabis Industry Association would like to thank its members who represent the leading professional businesses in America's emerging legal cannabis market. NCIA is the only organization that has unified legitimate cannabis business across the nation to fight for real reform in Washington, D.C. For more information or to make your business a member, visit us online at thecannabisindustry.org.
Okay, so on Facebook we posed a question. We haven't gotten any answers
Are
yet.
we back already?
We're back already.
How
yes.
did that happen?
Because
Time
the
flies.
commercial's over.
Oh.
Well, you had your nose down and texting.
I was Facebooking, actually, different.
Different. Oh,
Not at all.
not that. No, not
even
really.
Also
Not even a
texting.
little different. Just where are you texting? And
Yeah,
okay, you were
it's
texting on
exact-
Facebook.
it's literally exactly the same.
So the question I posed, and so I'm going to ask you guys this, and I'm like one of those jerks who's posing a question because I have my own answers too, of course, and I want to be able to say them, but I want to hear what you guys think.
Yeah.
If you were the governor and you had $100 million to spend from marijuana tax revenue, what would you do with it?
Well, I think the most important thing is making sure that the regulatory structure for marijuana is finished being implemented and funded correctly. Like,
Sure.
I understand, I understand the argument that, it's a sort of bloated bureaucracy system right now, but in Med and DOR's defense, they're the only ones who are taking up the reins on this. CDPHE is way behind the 8 ball on the things that they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be certifying labs and making sure that we have legitimate lab practices and that there's standards that these labs are adhering to so that we have accurate data coming out of these labs when they are testing these products.
Right.
They're supposed to be doing tests for pesticides. They're supposed to be doing tests for like fertilizers, THC content, things like that. So I think that making sure that regulatory structure is fully funded is important. And I would also maybe throw a little bit of money towards law enforcement, if only because not to bust people, but listen, if there's a lot of marijuana going out of the state, which we all know there is, that's going to fuck it up for the rest of us, and that sucks. And nobody wants that. So there's also drugs coming into the state. I mean, I certainly know that, all this heroin that's coming in, all this ecstasy and meth, that's certainly not being grown in. I would prefer that these law enforcement officers spend their time going after that problem.
So I want to just to interject on what you just said, because you did mention basically 3 lines of funding that he has in his budget.
Right. So there's stuff that I agree with. Right.
But let me give you the numbers that he has, and let's just say that the governor's probably correct on those numbers, because he's probably looking, okay, these are salaries, these are what we're doing. We have $1.8 million for regulatory oversight and $0.2 million for statewide coordination. That's $2 million right there for regulatory oversight and coordination. If that's correct, that's all he needs for additional funding for regulation. Fine. Then you have $3.2 million for law enforcement and public safety. So that still puts us at $5.2 million out of this $100 million budget.
Right.
So you're now left with $94.6 million to spend.
We're all right 5% of the time,
so-
okay? There's nothing wrong with being right 5% of the time.
So let's just say,
So here's why this is not why this budget request is
No, I want to
much
finish my
more
laundry list.
Wait. Let me just interject this because this is why this budget request.
Hey, you brought him.
Is
I know, right?
a huge mistake. Here's why this budget request is more about politics. Not exactly sure who he's supposed to be appeasing.
Right.
But this is not the first time
I'm-
he made a bizarre decision that managed to appease no one. Reed Dunlap. But the reason why it cannot be serious is because if you are thinking about this from an economic perspective, and you do sincerely believe that that marijuana is dangerous, and that the commercialization of it will have a negative impact on society, what you want to do is you want to spend as much money on regulatory enforcement as you possibly can.
Right.
Because then you make the licensing fees very low so that you increase competition so that people put each other out of business. What he's doing instead is keeping it so that only the most capitalized, the most professional people can do this. And that means they're good business people who are going to be successful kind of no matter what. So you're creating millionaires instead of making it a fierce competitive marketplace. People just put each other out of business. If he is sincere in what he believes, which I don't believe he is, he's going the exact opposite direction of how you achieve that goal. If the whole idea is that I'm basing my budget proposal on some understanding of basic economics, which again...
Yeah, you went to Juilliard, though. You didn't go to economics.
So did Alan Greenspan, actually.
Did he really?
Alan Greenspan.
Oh, my God.
Alan Greenspan is a Juilliard clarinet guy. Absolutely. You can look that up on Wikipedia.
The nerd in this room just got overwhelming. Ugh, nerd. Anyways, I want to go back to my budget.
The same thing.
Go back to your budget. But
Then I think the most critical aspect, because in my opinion, I think the most threatening issue that marijuana is facing is a public safety issue. Not necessarily that the marijuana industry is impacting public safety, but that seems to be the perception of everyone else. They want to make sure that the whole public safety arena is covered. Fine. You want to make sure public safety is covered? Great. Here's how you cover public safety. And this was one of the things that was outlined, in the Cole memo. So that's what I would do. I would make sure that we're adhering as closely to that Cole memo as we possibly can.
sure.
And so the third thing I would do is banking. I would say, I had a little idea where I thought, well, I just don't really think it's fair that the state gets to bank. I think now they were looking at revenues of like $180 million of marijuana tax revenue. And yet none of these, so Chase Bank gets $180 million of, the state of Colorado's money that's tainted with marijuana, that is, the proceeds of an illegal activity. Yet they won't bank this industry.
Yeah.
To me, I think that's totally hypocritical. So I would take all that money, I would put it into like state chartered credit unions, and then and that allows, or put it in some sort of financial banking or institution, whatever kind of financial institution scheme you can come up with. And I would say that this is the that you only get access to this tax revenue money if you allow for banking for the entire industry.
I have not given the Obama administration very much credit all in the process of this policy change.
Sure.
They have not been leaders. They have not.
They're begrudgingly kind of coming along with
but,
that. Yeah.
But the idea that anybody who understands how to read English can think that the directives that came from FinCEN and the Department of Justice last week is not sufficient for banks to bank the industry, that person is either actually illiterate or a liar.
Well, and so here's my so why are the banks still saying no after they've just been given the green light?
Why are they saying no, Sean?
Because they can't make any money doing it.
How are they not making any money doing it? They're getting all this money coming in.
And they're right about.
Because they can't give you loans.
Why can't they?
Okay, so
would you loan money to a business that could get zoned out of existence the next day by a legislature or by city council?
The financial services industry is correct that this is not a cash cow for them. That's true. You got to think about it this way. The amount of economic activity industry produces, most of that money is not in a bank at any particular time.
Right, it's just shifting. It's just
right. So in terms of having large amount of money to build your capital, having a good customer that you can have a long-term debt relationship with, what have you, all these things really aren't available when you're talking about an industry that the legal industry, which again, legal is hazy, but the national between the 21 states with medical marijuana, the 2 illegal, what have you, about $2 billion. $2 billion spread out against every bank in the country is not worth it. It just isn't enough money.
Sure.
Why do we care? So long as there is still this public safety issue that not having these businesses banked presents, the banks view that as some level of political leverage to say, well, what we want is a less regulated environment for banks. Again, card-carrying liberal Democrat on financial service, I tend to be a little more conservative. I kind of agree that the world of financial services is a little too overregulated.
What are you talking about?
However,
they crashed our entire economy, Sean.
Yeah,
because they were underregulated.
And Dodd-Frank is frankly putting water on an electrical fire. It was not a financial crisis, a liquidity crisis. This is not what we're here to talk about today.
Right.
But I'm all saying this all to say I'm giving the banks a lot of credit here. But they're lying.
Well, of course they are.
There's 2 reasons they don't want to do this. One, there isn't enough money to be made for them. That part is true. And then the other aspect of it is that this is a pawn in their game with the regulators and federal government on banking regulation in general. And that is really an embarrassment to the financial services industry. I mean, the idea that their whole argument is they should have less rules because they're good and better at managing risk than federal regulators are.
Which they've already proven to be terrible at managing risk.
But somehow, some way, the risk that in the unlikely event that a licensed marijuana business who, as a function of having a license from the state of Colorado, has had both a criminal and financial background done on those individuals, that somehow, some way, if they or to get into some level of trouble that later, which by the way, when was the last time a marijuana business owner got arrested? Even the most recent raids, no arrest, no charges.
No arrest, no indictment, nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that after all that happens, that somehow, some way, the guy in the bank's also going to go to jail.
Well,
but you guys, but then on the other hand, you guys are risk takers and are courageous and want to take more risks. Again, just like with the government, what I would ask of the financial service industry is for a consistent argument.
Right.
I'm willing to accept that your argument, and I'm willing to accept that I'm wrong, but your argument needs to just be consistent.
Well, I agree with you on that. I mean, I think the big thing, I get what you're saying on the there's not enough money in it, because obviously if there was enough money, the banks wouldn't have an issue with it at all. They'd be all over it. But I think local banks should be jumping on this right away. Even if they're FDIC insured, I think they should be jumping right all over this.
Look, I mean,
because they will make enough money.
I know,
it
and
will impact those
that
banks.
was one of the things that we talked about, where it was then maybe we use some of this money to leverage a loan or a grant to some of these banks to say, look, if you have to hire extra staff to be able to complete these SARS reports, maybe, but as long as you're willing to bake this industry, here's an extra,
and even ancillary companies, though, are having issues because of this.
But I wouldn't disagree with you that, a smaller bank is going to have a more difficult time, because the cost of compliance, whether you're a big bank or a small bank, will be identical, except that you have less resources to do it if you're a small bank. So I am sympathetic to the bank's position in terms of what they are required to do. What I think is reprehensible, however, is using this as a pawn and a completely unrelated political discussion, because that's the real core of it.
It really is.
The financial aspect of it is solvable. That is solvable. All that takes is, first of all, it also takes some action from local governments, because what local governments need to do is stop changing the rules every 5 days.
Right.
Because if I'm a city council that changes the rules every 5 days, then I can't get a loan from a bank, no matter what kind of business I'm doing.
Sure.
So when local governments say that they care about this, and Democratic city council is sending resolutions to Congress and all of that, that's all fine and good. But actions speak louder than words. Stop changing the rules every 5 days, and these people will be able to be lendable customers, thus making them profitable customers for the types of smaller local institutions you're talking about. But until that happens, again, I'm sympathetic to the bank's logical argument about their ability to make money and comply with the things they'll have to do it. They're right about that, but it's reprehensible they're using this as an argument as a pawn in Dodd-Frank. That's just reprehensible.
Right. Well, did you finish with your
No, I haven't finished. I still keep wanting to go, but Sean just won't shut the fuck up. It's not funny. It's not fun. Okay. Funny. Next, I'd get a little Botox, right? And then I rust up my shoe profile. That would be nice. There's this cute pair of boots that I've had my eye on. And then what? And then I'm thinking research and development.
Research and development for what?
Well, not just, the positive and negative aspects of cannabis. I think that also I would want broad research development, but I would really want to study how effective are these regulations that we're working on, audits, reports, what is this the most effective use of our money towards this? I think.
How much bureaucracy would something like that create, though?
No, it's just an independent study. There's people who do this stuff all the time. Audit committees do this all the time. And then I think economic development impact, I think, would be huge. I want to know how many ancillary jobs is this industry creating? How and then what's the average? I want salary surveys done in the industry. I want to know what's the average worker making. Are they receiving health care benefits? Things like that. Because I want to show the positives in this industry that we know that we're contributing back.
Does the money have to be spent in some relationship of the industry itself, though?
Yes.
No, it doesn't. No,
the Blue Book said.
No. Okay.
It's a little. There's some vagueness there, but the Blue Book did stipulate. Now there's a statutory fix you could do to it, but the Blue Book did state.
Okay, so here's how it all works. The excise tax every year up to $40 million. So $39,999,000,99 up to $40,000 every single year
goes to the best fund.
Right. Anything more than that, it can go wherever the legislature would like it to go. The marijuana cash fund, which is from the statutory tax, the sales tax, the first $5 million goes back to the state's general fund to repay the amount of money used from the general fund to fund the marijuana enforcement division,
which is only going to be that's only going to happen 1 or 2 years.
That provision of it sunsets to 2018,
right?
And then also from that fund, 15% of it always goes back to the local governments from where that money was raised.
Sure.
And then the rest of it is do what you like.
It says it does say implementation of retail marijuana. Right?
It's not limiting.
I know, and related to, and then it says things and related to public health, environment, safety, things like that. So there's broad applications.
Well, because my thought is when you talk about public health, safety, that can encompass anything. That can encompass, like I said, better public transportation because it creates a safer environment for the public and less drunk drivers on the streets and so and so on and so forth.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm saying there's broad implications.
Gotcha.
I mean, if you want to look at there's always flexibility in language. And then, so I want to see like economic impact, how many ancillary jobs we are creating, like, what exactly does a social contract now look like? And then, where am I at? 6. And then I think we actually, once we have these studies in place, I want to look at, what kind of credit and tax breaks do we give back to this industry? And we think one of the major things that a lot of these businesses face are these exit packages, these child-proof packaging. Botanicare has a really great package where they use these like canvas bank-like type bags that they lock it. They brand it, with their logo. And I'm thinking, like, if somebody's doing that, why can't that customer then bring that back to the store, get a discount on their purchase, sort of like when you bring in your own.
I think they do that.
Some of them do, yeah. But I'm saying that those there's still an initial investment cost on the side of the owner. And so why couldn't they, if they're participating in something that reduces waste, because some of these businesses are using plastic, which isn't
Get
very
those made
good
out
for
of hemp.
reusable. Yeah, get them made out of this hemp or canvas that's reusable, that's durable, that's going to last a long time, that's not like plastic or just going to wear and tear and like kind of get icky. And then, if you can prove that you have like this environmentally friendly package that's going to reduce on waste, why not get a tax credit for that?
Sure.
Tax
credit for marijuana businesses?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah, well, it could be
Doesn't
nice.
happen.
I mean, that's the
That
kind of
doesn't
thing
happen.
I would like,
No, but
trickle
I
down.
like that. That makes sense. I mean, I guess that's my big question, because where I'm thinking about spending the money doesn't necessarily have to do with the marijuana industry, but it has to do with state improvements for our state.
Well, yeah, of
What would you
course.
do? What would you do, Sean?
Well, here I actually kind of disagree with the premise of the question, because the premise assumes that you have to spend the money.
Okay.
You don't have to spend it.
Right, you don't.
No,
So
don't.
you like the idea of putting it in a reserve fund or giving it back?
Here's why.
You just want to spend it like a drunken sailor or something like
no,
that, throwing money at
here's-
all the strippers and all that stuff?
Here's why the question of do you have to spend it all is important. Because if you come down to yes, then there must be a reason to spend it, right?
Yes.
The governor's premise is that
I'm going to make up a reason.
well, no, the governor's premise is that this is going to be a bad thing. So
Yes.
therefore we must
Yes.
mitigate it because
It's
it's
like- yeah.
absolutely 100% going to
It's
be
like
bad.
dirty money that he's just trying to get rid of.
Now, I disagree with that.
I do too.
Now, if you were going to spend it the other way and say, "Oh, we're going to give tax credits," and like, that's on the assumption that it's absolutely 100% going to be good, and we want to encourage more of it.
Right.
I don't think any of those arguments make any sense, because how are we to know? We haven't done this before. Why don't we just wait and see what's going to happen? And if it's good, let's do more of it. And if it's bad, let's do less of it. It'd be really handy to have around when we actually figure out what the impact is going to be, good, bad, or indifferent. $100 million.
Yeah.
That'd be really handy to have.
It
when
would
we
be handy.
actually have actionable items to spend it on. So you don't have to spend it now. Why?
Well, and I actually think it would be way more responsible to say, look, my budget is for $100 million, like what you're saying, Sean, and then say, okay, this much is going to be allocated towards regulatory oversight. This much is going to be allocated towards public health, which really would probably amount to about $10 million of the $100 million. Then you have $90 million left over that they say, look, we don't know what we're going to need this money for yet. So we're going to put it down and we're going to say, look, we will readdress the situation while it's a, hey, nice interest earning account or wherever it goes, and hold on to it, and then we will come back and say, now, this is after a year of this is what I'd like to do with this $90
I don't think that
million.
there's anybody in Boulder County who, after the floods last October, wouldn't have said, gee, wouldn't it have been nice to have just an extra $100 million lying around. I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but it seems like we still live in Colorado just like we did last year when we had fires and floods.
Yep.
I just feel like
Fires are going to happen. The flood is a rare thing here, but it does
Maybe.
happen. But
I
with
don't-
the
again,
fires
I don't-
comes
again,
floods.
I'm not
So
a climate scientist.
Wait,
I don't know
what
that
did
it's
you
rare.
say was a rare thing?
floods, not a rare thing, but like on the devastating level that it was in Boulder.
No,
that
but
doesn't
that's
happen
gonna
often.
be- no, but
Fires happen on that level
No,
on a
but
regular basis.
The reason those floods are happening
Because
is
of the
because of
fires. Oh, no, that's what I said.
So,
Fires
these-
bring floods.
These
Yeah.
floods are going to be a common occurrence, so is the
You're
fires, which is why people should be building their homes out of hemp. Fire
should
and-
be building.
fire and mold resistant.
Fire
people.
and mold resistant.
and
I'm
mold
just all I'm suggesting.
Hemp.
All I'm
Healing
suggesting
homes.
is if what the
Healing
governor says, which I agree with, that it's inconclusive, that we don't know what's going to happen. I would certainly think that a logical approach would be to say, well, we do know for a fact certain we're going to have fires. Why don't we wait until A, we have more data on how this is going, And just in case, we'll have this money lying around for when that fire comes so we can get those helicopters and bring them to the state and all those things. Because that still is not going to be free. Mm-hmm. The legislature's passing bills all day, every day about fire and flood and how to, pay for damage we had last year. I mean, we have $100 million.
That's pretty hysterical when you think about we don't know how to pay for this. Oh, well, we have this $100 million, but we're going to pay for this. And it's like, I think it's a great point. It's one of those things that I would rather him say, look, the rest of this money goes into a fund that will be used for disaster relief first and foremost if necessary. And if it's not needed, then we will look at where to allocate that a year or two from now. I think that does make sense. It would be a responsible way to look at it.
Unless you're just drawing a line in the sand with the legislature. But then
which is most likely what's going on.
Which then he needs to talk to his own party about that, why him and his legislature can't get along.
Well, I just want to know,
all Democrats.
Project Sam is funded by a lot of rehab companies, so I do find it fascinating that the majority of this money is going to companies that
I'm the first,
were against marijuana all along.
I'm the first person to say that Project Sam, Smart Colorado, whatever they call themselves here, has hired lobbyists way more expensive and way better at their job than I am. So, that they managed to sneak out $100 million.
I don't know. They're not that good at their job.
Well, I didn't get $100 million. I didn't get a $45 million line for my client.
But you get paid that much more to lie. That's the thing. It's like, and at the same point, they're not doing that good of a job. Maybe the lobbyists are doing as good a job as they can under false pretenses of that lobby.
If I had secured a $45 million line item in the governor's budget request for my clients would be pretty happy with me.
Yes, they are.
I didn't do that, did I? No. I got him 1.8.
Yeah, but there's going to be a board that decides where.
Yeah, man, you better get to work.
You got to be on the board first that decides where this money goes. They're not there yet.
I'm just saying that they got a $45 million line item.
But how many pro marijuana lobbyists got a seat at that table?
Oh, none. Why would we be there?
None. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Why would we be there?
Exactly. Why would you be at the table for how to spend money on marijuana?
Well, so another important question then is if the governor isn't interested in talking to Colorado's cannabis community, I just want to throw another million number right there. 1.3 million. How many people voted for Amendment 64 in this state?
Yeah.
900,000. Number who voted for John Hikenpooper.
Yeah.
If he's not interested in what those 1.3 million people are interested in, okay.
Yeah. And is he running for re-election
this year?
Yeah,
he is, right?
Yeah.
Oh, have fun. And it's sad to think that we might have a Republican governor in Colorado because he's such an idiot.
Well, wouldn't you rather have a Republican governor versus they keep a Democrat legislature versus I don't know. What now? You have
if I had to choose,
if you had to split, or choose between a Democrat governor and then a split legislature.
Let me throw one more thing as you think about this.
You get nothing.
Let me throw one thing.
I'd rather get things done.
Let me throw one more thing at you as you're thinking about this. Okay, now I'm going to take off my Democrat. I'm just putting on my pure marijuana myopic worldview. If I am involved in a national movement where I'm going to need the cooperation of governors in other states, I probably don't want the lesson to be that the one governor who could be the champion of this is going around telling those other governors that, hey, definitely do not
he has
legalize.
Told them that. Yeah,
well, at the governor's conference, where all the governors get together and all the other governors, hey, Governor Hikenpooper, how's your whole marijuana thing? And he's like, oh, definitely don't do it in your state under no circumstance. I hate this experiment. Don't do it for the revenue. Don't do it for any reason. So if I am thinking about that, and I'm a cannabis-minded voter, do I want the lesson to be that the person who should be the biggest champion is going around telling everybody else in the country to not do it? Do I want the lesson to be, oh, then you get to get reelected?
Yeah.
Probably not, right?
No, probably not. So, but here's the funny thing about that, though. In a way, I mean, I don't think he's thinking like this, but if I was to say something like that as the governor being pro cannabis, it would be more like, no, don't legalize it because we want all of your people to come to our state and buy it.
Yeah, but that's not what he said.
But that's not what he said, and that's not what he's thinking in that thought process.
And it's not even like what he said was open to interpretation. That he might have implied that.
No, he didn't imply it at all.
Because if I would have done exactly.
Exactly. No, it's terrible.
It's just
I don't know. I don't like the problem of having to know what to do with this money that's coming into my state. So don't do it yourself.
If I was the governor of Colorado, whenever I'd be out of state traveling, I would say, yeah, Legalized marijuana is a disaster.
It's terrible.
We have snow in July.
Well, that's what Colorado citizens will tell people from out of state. Oh no, the weather is horrible.
And
here.
the weather's terrible, and
Yeah.
the beer tastes like garbage. Like, I mean, that's what I'd be telling it, people.
That's how I would be looking at it too. And it's like, and of course that. But here's the thing I think is funny is a lot of them are still they heard that, and I don't think he swayed anybody's position on legalizing it.
Lincoln Chafee, the governor of Rhode Island's like, well, pot cures potholes.
No.
Jay Inslee, the governor of Washington's like, oh, it's going great in my state. I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
It's going great.
Yeah.
So
So he's just looking like a moron, really, when he comes up and says
that's
that.
not what I said.
No, I'm saying it. That's what I'm saying. I know. I just think it's just it's amazing that he is still on the wrong side of progress on the situation. And the more the rest of the country is on board, the more he's still like sticking to his guns of being on the wrong side of progress.
I just think that if you are a person who sees the importance of the role that Colorado has to play in this national movement, I think you have to really think hard to yourself about what lessons you want our next election to be. What lessons you want people taking away from that.
Yeah.
And I think that I wouldn't say it would be as bad as a setback as if Oregon's ballot measure loses this fall, but I think it'd be a pretty uncomfortable scenario moving forward into 2015 and 2016 when someone can credibly say, I can still be the champion of prohibition and get reelected.
Yeah.
That needs to not be something anybody can say anymore if we want to really make this national.
And he's running unopposed on the Democratic ticket, correct?
Apparently.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any independents? Any independents running?
Not that I've heard.
No, I haven't really heard. There's
look, I mean, it's
the
not
Republicans have a wide bench. There's
well, they always do. They cast out a wide
Yeah,
net. Because,
yeah.
Well, look, here's what I would say.
maybe if Bob Beaupre gets in the race, he can run as an independent.
Well, here's what I would say. Now we're going to more into like the political sports show, and now right. But here's what I would say. With Cory Gardner entering the Senate race, the Republicans actually have a shot at that Senate race now. So now the Democrats are going to play defense in the Senate race, which they didn't have to do yesterday. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe about the time yesterday, that was a new thing, right? They weren't planning on doing it. They weren't set up for now. That's a real race. So they got that to deal with. They have to keep their one-seat majority in the Colorado Senate. They have to keep the majority in the Colorado House. And they also have to somehow, some way, keep the governor's office, not to mention Secretary of State, Attorney General. I mean, it's a lot of things the Democratic Party in the state's going to have to do. Do they have the bandwidth to do them all? I don't know. The Republicans' bench, pretty weak, right? So you have a weak Republicans, but again, now the Republicans are also kind of in the same situation. It was like, wait a second, until yesterday we didn't have a shot at the Senate race. Now we got to spend some time doing that. That is a really fertile environment when the two major parties are going to be fighting over the federal seat, the Senate seat. That's a really fertile environment for independent candidates to start creeping out and the statewide races, including the governor's race. And the reason why is because if everybody in the state voted party line, the independent would win every time.
Sure.
Because that's the greatest amount of registrants in the state is independent. Yep. So, does an independent come out on the left? Does an independent come on the right? Who knows? But if that does happen, I think that whoever that person might be, left or right, is going to have a really unique opportunity here because the two major parties are going to be really focusing on that Senate race because you're talking about controlling the United States Senate is on the line. So, I think that from the politics to sport perspective, Colorado's 2014 election just got a lot more interesting.
Sure.
And I think that, the cannabis community, again, with our 1.3 million votes, that's not nothing. We can make an impact. Mm-hmm. And if we decide, we can decide how this election is going to go for the state. And we should really take that opportunity that we have it.
Well, I think we're going to have more opportunities as it goes on. We actually have to end the show, but just looking at the enrollment stats on CU, and how many people are want to move into the state now. Basically, I think a lot of that has to do with
property values are skyrocketing.
And a lot of that is attributed to the legalization and the freedoms we have here.
You're absolutely right. I know personally people who are people who brought with them good jobs that they brought here. These are not people who could live anywhere.
Yeah.
Who chose to move here for they can't listen to Governor Hikenpooper say that's a bad idea because for the reason they moved here.
Yeah.
They're going to vote for anybody else.
Exactly,
right?
they are because they want to make sure that they moved here for good reasons and not have somebody in office who could take us back.
And so to put my partisan hat back on, I totally agree with Samantha that the most important thing for Democrats is to keep the legislature.
Oh, it is,
and with everything else that's going on now on the big ticket races, I think that the Democrats in the state really need to focus on that legislature.
Sure.
And everything else is kind of like, well, that's going to kind of fall where it may.
Well, but they only have a majority by a small margin, so wouldn't the governor still have veto power over everything? So the governor, if we had a Republican governor, he could veto everything.
Okay, so
yeah, but if the governor can veto everything, my turn. Is my turn.
Stasis?
No, my turn.
Well, we have to end. So, all right. Sorry to say, Samantha, we're going to give you the last word.
I'm just saying, so if you have a governor who can veto everything, doesn't that give a Democratic legislature the ability to move a little bit more progressively? Because they know it's going to be a losing battle anyways.
Sure.
So now it's all about messaging bills.
Sure.
Message.
Yeah.
So then we can get a little bit more of a liberal agenda going, which will be nice.
Yeah, but a liberal agenda that might not go anywhere.
So what? At least we can get heard for a while.
All right. Well, I think that's a good point. I actually do. And I'd love to talk more about that point, but, the show's over. So, Sean Coleman, I really thank you so much, man. I appreciate
always fun.
Yeah. And
I didn't even invite him. He just followed me.
He just
here.
followed you here.
I tried to lose him in traffic. It was
I got to
embarrassing.
speak out at town hall tonight, so I had nothing better to do.
Are you going to Angela Williams' town hall?
Angela Williams' town
Where's
hall.
that at?
It is. I can tell
It's
you.
in Aurora.
Yeah,
Angela Williams.
Every Garrett Dennis campus, West Commons building. Does that mean anything to anybody?
Not at all.
Well, it's over there.
The West Commons building at some campus.
Some campus. Green
In
Valley
Aurora.
Ranch or
For
something.
anyone who's in Aurora and wants to go meet their representative, that would be a good thing to advertise, Sean.
All right.
Well, she's the chair of the business committee. I mean, that's a really important person to have around.
Right on. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, guys. And until next week, peace, love, and
Hempiness.